What is up, everybody? I got another guest. I got my man Sunil So Real on my right, maybe to your left. How's it going? I'm gonna let him introduce himself before you get the intro.
What's up? What's up, Raj? It's Sunil, So Real Sports Talk TV at So Real Sunil on all the socials. It's pretty much it, man. Nothing to intro.
All right, all right. Well, we'll get the real intro going then, and we'll be right back. What is going on, everybody? Here we are, another day, another live show. We got to get to all the information. There's not a lot because it's free agency. So we'll talk about Trey Lance today. We'll talk about Brock Purdy, of course, and we'll talk about free agency, but hopefully everybody's having a good day. I got my man Sunil with me today, and we'll kind of chop it up today as we did a couple weeks ago. So leading off today, there was a little bit of news out there. ESPN, Keyshawn Johnson, my man who's famous for saying, "Throw me the damn ball." He's out there supporting Trey Lance, which is kind of a contrast to most people in the media. Most people are saying he's not ready. This is not the guy. What are they going to do? Should they go sign another quarterback? Keyshawn says, look, this guy needs the ball in his hand. Basically, he's saying, give him the damn ball. Put the ball in his hand. Let him see what he can do. And he was sticking up for Trey, which is kind of, like I said, contrary to everybody in the media. I was surprised about this to see that. And, it's a big show. ESPN, normally these guys are just dogging him. So it was nice to see some people in the media actually giving him some credit. And they're saying he just needs to go out there, develop. He said, like, Brock Purdy, yeah, he had a magical run, but he doesn't see him being able to maybe replicate it. He's got the surgery. And at this point, you got to give Trey Lance his opportunity and let him cook. So, again, it was a big take that Keyshawn Johnson was out there basically saying, hey, I'd give my arm for this guy to go out there and do his thing. So what do you think, man? Trey Lance, he's basically now thrust into the starting role of the 49ers because of Brock Purdy's, surgery. It got a little postponed. We don't know when he's going to come back. So what's your take on Trey Lance?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously who's going to be the starter is a little bit more of a moot point now because, Brock Purdy's surgery is getting postponed. And even if he, everything's still – same timeline, the reality of him being ready or for the team to be confident he could be the starter week one is probably slim to none. So Trey Lance is going to be there. Obviously wish Brock Purdy a speedy recovery. I think we obviously still want him on the team, more in a backup role if he can do that. But my take with Trey Lance, man, I think there's just so much. One thing about our fan base, Raj, and you probably know better than me, the narratives that are created just out of nowhere are kind of wild. And, there's this narrative that Shanahan, doesn't believe in Trey Lance, and he's never really, they're not giving him the chance to develop and all this type of stuff. And my question to them is like, where? Like, where are people getting this narrative for? Let's actually put into perspective what happened with Trey Lance. So they go up. They obviously utilize 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance, right? Huh? They're coming off of a year where, 2 years removed from going to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's a battle in camp, right? So you have Jimmy on the books. There's no point in cutting him because of the dead money and all that type of stuff. So it's a bona fide battle. The team was struggling a little bit going into the season, and usually how rookies come into play when they're going to a team that's good, which is what the situation was, or even a team that isn't good. Raj, like they usually have a stopgap quarterback that would play half the season, and then you bring in the incumbent, right? Like you saw it with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. You saw even a guy like Patrick Mahomes who might go down as the GOAT, he sat for his whole first year. So this whole narrative that, oh, you're just supposed to start your rookie right away, that's not always necessarily the way that things are supposed to go. So anyways, they end up going to the NFC Championship game with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Yeah. So unfortunately, obviously you'd want Trey to get a little more run in his first year, especially since he didn't play football for a whole year because of COVID. But it just didn't make sense because the quarterback that was there, you were still winning games, right? So then the real decision comes year 2. And what was that decision? From the jump, Shanahan was like, Trey is my starter. Jimmy Garoppolo is on the market. Like, he said that out of his mouth. Like, what coach is so what more did he need to say to make you believe that Trey? And then week 1, who was the starter?
Trey. But I think what happened was they didn't get rid of Jimmy, and obviously surgery complicated things here and there. And I feel like going back to Trey's rookie season, you're right. He was gonna sit there and wait, and they were okay with Jimmy playing that year. Be the bridge. And a lot of quarterbacks have done it, like you said. Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers has done it. A lot of quarterbacks have gone through that route. But I think because they actually made the trade to go up and get Trey, and to get rid of Jimmy because of the injury history. But then here we are, we're still going with Jimmy. I feel like the fans are like, you told us you were getting rid of Jimmy. Now he's still the guy. What the hell is wrong with you? So I feel like in their mind, they're like,
let's put that. Put that into perspective too, though, Raj. Let's put Jimmy's back on the team. So they did something that you only do when you don't want your quarterback there. The Raiders just did it with Derek Carr. Mm-hmm. And that is, you give them permission while they're still under contract to go speak to other teams. That's what you do when you don't want your quarterback there, right? And obviously then it got to a point for the Raiders where they cut Derek Carr. And that's where all the 49er fans that are saying, oh, they stuck with Jimmy, they're like, why didn't you just cut him? Well, let's see what they did. If Jimmy didn't come back and say, hey, I will take this major pay cut where his base salary, Raj, was less than Trey Lance. So he went from, going to be able to make $25 million or something to making less than $7 million a year, which was less than Trey Lance, because Trey Lance was a starter. They weren't going to pay him more than Jimmy. Or Jim. They weren't going to pay Jimmy more than Trey. That's what happened. It wasn't that they stuck with them. They had, if you get a starting level quarterback, which Jimmy Garoppolo is, and you could pay him $7 million for that, why wouldn't you take that versus whoever else they could get as a backup quarterback? That's the only reason. It wasn't because they wanted Jimmy. They started Trey. The only reason Trey didn't finish the season off was not because they pulled him out of he broke his leg. He was gone for the whole season. Otherwise, there would be no Jimmy Garoppolo. There would be no Brock Purdy. It would just be Trey throughout the whole season. So this narrative, once again, is just being created because of circumstance, not because of choices that were made. It was, if Trey wasn't injured, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, 100%. If Trey wasn't hurt, we would have got to see what he did. And I feel like, maybe they could have given him a little bit more opportunities his first season, whatever. But they didn't. And you're right, Trey was the guy. And unfortunately, he broke his leg, right? And he got hurt. But I think the crazy part was they still kept Jimmy, like you said, on a discounted contract. And then he came and he started games anyway. So it was just like, from people I've talked to, they're like, it's like this guy just keeps sticking around like mildew or whatever. And then it's just like he won't go away. But for them, it actually was great that they kept him because, you had a really good backup, and it was a situation where he could come in and, you can win games with them. So it was just an atypical situation. The 49ers are an atypical team when it comes to quarterback. So that was just something that's unique to the Niners because I've never seen that happen in any other team that, the guy that they're getting rid of, like you say, usually they get rid of him, they cut him, like Derek Carr. 49ers kept him around. They restructured his deal, which was weird. And then they gave him incentives. If you play, which I don't think they even thought he was going to play, but he did. And he was making money. He was banking on that contract, making money if you won, making money if you threw a certain amount of yards, getting all those bonuses. And then now he's out of the fray most likely. And then, like you said, you have Brock Purdy. Here he is. Boom. He takes him on a magical run. Nobody expected him to be QB3, but now he's injured. And now we all expected his surgery to be yesterday. He was supposed to be, post-op day 1 today. It's postponed until March, but we don't even have a date for that. It could be the beginning of March. It could be the end of March. So again, that throws Trey Lance in the like so like you said, people are saying he doesn't get the opportunities or whatever. He's getting all the opportunity he's going to want this year. Right now, it's in front of him. The world is his oyster. This is his opportunity to show everybody, hey, I'm your guy. Because Brock, we don't know when the heck he's going to come back. We don't even know when his surgery's coming.
Yeah, and Raj, it's like reality is Trey Lance has gotten all the opportunities, right? Like in the sense they've given him the opportunities in the game plan that they were going to give him those opportunities, right? If the 49ers in the first year of Trey Lance threw him out there and he looked terrible, right? And they didn't make the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. What would be the narrative about Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers? Obviously this guy was going to be terrible. He didn't play. He played at NDSU. He didn't even play his he had a whole season not playing football. Like, and you had the opportunity to start Jimmy. You really don't care about winning. You guys are, trying to kick the can and all this kind of stuff. You have Nick Bosa. You have Fred Warner. You have Arik Armstead. You have George Kittle. You have Debo. You have a win now roster, and you're over here like. At the end of the day, it's damned if you did, damned if you didn't, right? And that's what I'm trying to say. They have a plan. The plan was, okay, we're gonna ease him into it, and his year 2, after we're gonna get rid of Jimmy for sure, he's gonna be the starter. Year 2, he had every single rep in OTAs and training camp. He had every single rep with the first team. Jimmy was on the sideline, basically just going out there for a photo shoot, right? And and then. He was the starter. Week 2, he broke his leg. And coming into, he's going to be healthy. And this training camp, he's going to get all the reps with the first team. He's going to get all the reps, moving. So he's going to be the week 1 starter. So I'm like, where is this narrative that the 49ers aren't looking at Trey as their the quarterback of their future? It's just that they happen to have another young quarterback that played really well. Why wouldn't you want there to be a competition there? But never once has Shanahan stated that Trey Lance wasn't going to be his starter moving forward. Like it would be dumb to be like, oh, we just had this quarterback that took us to the NFC Championship game, went 7 for 7, and the only reason his first loss was because he tore his ligament in his elbow. Yeah, he's not worth giving him a shot to compete in training camp. Like that would be dumb. Like, of course, you want to give you want the best player to win, but I had faith that Trey Lance was always going to win that competition if it's head to head. He's bigger, he's more athletic, he has a stronger arm. Obviously, Brock Purdy has shown it in game time. That's the only difference between the two of them is that when Brock Purdy got his opportunity, he had enough. At least that 7-game stretch where people were able to see what the offense could look like under him. We still haven't seen that. Like we haven't gotten that opportunity to see what the offense will look like under Trey Lance. But we are going to get that opportunity, and in my books, it's going to look great.
Yeah, no, I think he can. So I think going back to like you said, okay, so people are saying he's not getting the opportunity. Like people in the media, a lot of fans are saying he's not getting the opportunity. That's basically the narrative a lot of people are saying. So. Is it because and don't maybe this is the way I take it when people say that? I think they're saying Kyle's not giving him the same plays as Brock Purdy because I've heard that go around a lot. Circles. They're saying he's not getting the same plays. He's not getting the same playbook as Brock or Jimmy because they had a different offensive play call. They were running Trey up the middle like the running quarterback. They're using him like a dual threat guy, which Kyle called him. He's a dual threat guy. So. But obviously, you want him to take advantage of that mobility, right? That's what he does. He can run, he can throw on the run. Do you feel like that he was given the fair shake in terms of the playbook, the play calling? Again, it is a small snapshot of what he was able to do. He didn't get a big chance yet because of the injury history and everything. So it's a small scale of what we've seen out of Trey. But do you feel like he was given the same playbook as a guy like Brock Purdy? What do you think on that one?
No, I don't think he was given that opportunity, but not because he wasn't given that opportunity. He didn't get the chance because there wasn't enough games. I personally think, Raj, that initially, and I think Kyle Shanahan mentioned it as well, he still didn't know Trey Lance. Like he didn't know exactly how to call a game for Trey Lance, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what showed up in that Arizona game, his first start, right? Where he ran like majority of the time, didn't get to throw it that much. And I think that was definitely Kyle Shanahan maybe not understanding exactly what Trey could do, or maybe Trey wasn't at the point where he could really execute the game plan. It could have been a little bit of both, right? But then you saw in Houston, especially that second half in Houston, he was given the opportunity and he looked really, really good, right? Then his third opportunity, his third start was like a torrential monsoon. Like there was no playbook that you could have opened up that would have looked good in that game just because of the weather conditions. And then his fourth start, what was it, like the second time they got the ball, he broke his leg. So
Yeah.
I don't think, like, we saw the rest of that Seattle game. I don't think that all of a sudden the playbook changed when Jimmy got into the game. I think that would have been the playbook for those are the same plays that they were going to give to Trey. It just, we didn't get the opportunity. So I agree with you as far as have we seen Trey with the same playbook as Brock Purdy or Jimmy? I don't think we had, but I don't think it was because Kyle Shanahan wasn't going to give those plays to Trey. I think it was he just got injured before we got to see that.
No, I agree. I think that's a good point. What you said is the fact is Kyle still was trying to figure out Trey. He still wanted to kind of see how he works with this offense because, again, he's a raw guy. We haven't really seen much out of him, but I think he knows what he can do with this offense, and he does have a different skill set than Brock and Jimmy, and there might be some different plays for him. But also, too, we haven't even seen Trey Lance with Christian McCaffrey and most of these guys, right? He has a small,
He's only played one game with Kittle.
Yeah, I was just going to say Kittle hasn't really done much with them. So I feel like, again, this offseason, with everybody healthy, I mean, right now everybody's healthy coming into this camp. This should be a monumentous opportunity for him because you're going to have all these guys, Kittle and Ayuk and Debo. And Debo last year didn't get to train with anybody, really. Mm-hmm. We saw him wearing, tights half the time in the early parts of training camp. So he gets to train with everybody. And again, CMC. So I think this definitely is going to give Trey a huge, step ahead. So it is unfortunate for Brock Purdy. Now, shifting back to him, he did have his surgery postponed. What do you think the effect of that's going to have on Brock? I mean, it may spill into obviously he's not going to be ready for week 1 now with how this is going, most likely, and if Trey's ready and he's kicking butt, obviously that's good. But let's say Trey's coming out, team gets off to a slow start, which they're traditionally, over the last couple of years, they have, other than 2019, do you think that Kyle would say, hey, look, Brock's ready, we'll throw him back in? Or does it depend on how good Trey's doing?
If we're going just off of the history of Kyle Shanahan, he doesn't usually make those type of QB changes.
Yeah.
He usually is going to, whomever is his starter week 1, he's going to stick with that person because he really believes in continuity. So I think the only way Trey Lance gets pulled off of the field is another injury, right? And knock on wood, let's hope that doesn't happen. But I don't think that Brock Purdy coming back is going to necessarily affect whether or not Trey is a starter. And look, the reality is, for a player who already had questionable arm strength, you don't know how he's going to respond, right? And we're hoping that it's 6 months and it's just the brace surgery and he's able to come back in 6 months. But obviously we didn't expect them to have to postpone the surgery. They go in there and, if it's automatically Tommy John, maybe he doesn't come back. So I think realistically what it does affect, Raj, is the 49ers game plan moving forward in free agency and the draft is going to change. I do expect them to draft another quarterback, and I do expect them to really look for a backup that they feel confident can play as a starter if need be, because clearly, this year they went down to their 4th string quarterback. So they know that, having a competent quarterback room is extremely important. So I look to them to maybe spend some money on a backup where they may not have thought about spending too much because of Brock Purdy and Trey being there. Now I think they may have to, actually pay somebody that they feel like can come in, be that veteran backup, but also if, God forbid, Trey goes down, somebody that could hold the fort down.
Yeah, I agree. I initially I was like, okay, they probably won't go for that big of a veteran. I mean, obviously they got to get someone in, but this does change things because they may have to get a guy that maybe a little step above of who they wanted initially. But there's a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of teams that want a quarterback, so there might be a little bit more competition in that market. But as far as
who are some of the guys you're thinking of as far as to bring in as a backup?
So some of the guys I'm thinking of are Jacoby Brissett. I think that he'd be a solid addition. I like Brissett. I think he's a guy that could come in if needed. He can manage the offense and at least keep this team stable for a bit. Jacoby Brissett's a guy. I like Gardner Minshew, believe it or not. I think that's a guy that I thought I wanted him last year as a backup at some point. I was like, oh, maybe they can get him. Before everything kind of went in, they got Nate Sudfeld and stuff. That was a guy I was looking into. And he has a little bit of history with Kyle. They were at the Senior Bowl together several years ago. So that's a guy I like. Those are probably the top two in my book at the moment. What about you? Who do you have?
So I like the two you mentioned. A name that I'm excited about that may be available based off of what this team does is Marcus Mariota.
I've heard that name.
So yeah, because obviously if Atlanta ends up getting Lamar, like everybody's kind of talking that might be it. Yeah. Obviously, they don't need Mariota there anymore. Mariota would be somebody who has a similar skill set, right? Can be a dual threat, has the mobility. So I think that when you're looking at the backup, you want it to be something similar to the starter, and I think that would be a good fit. Guy that doesn't necessarily expect to be a starter, has been a backup, but still can compete and mentor Trey Lance and even, prepare him better. I think that would be a good pickup as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like Mariota. I mean, he's been, a top pick. He's been in that starting role, a lot of, hype around him, and then he kind of fizzled out, and he's kind of had to accept that backup role. So I feel like he'd be good to a guy that Trey could pick his brain mentally because Mariota's been through a lot of crap, man. In this league. So that's a good pick. I like the Mariota. And yeah, you're right. He does have a similar skill set. And worst case scenario, we get to Mariota. I'd be okay with him. I'd be okay with any of those guys, honestly. But I mean, I at this point, I just hope they don't neglect it and they end up getting to that Josh Johnson point again. But I think after this year, definitely, I think they learned their lesson, man.
Right?
Oh man,
brutal, I don't think Josh Johnson is even coming back as a fourth string anymore.
He's not even get I don't even think he's gonna get the Jordan Matthews, Dante Johnson treatment where they cut him and bring him back at that.
Right?
He doesn't even have that treatment anymore. That's bad.
I don't even think he'll make it in the USFL, bro. And then even the team you're covering isn't gonna.
What about the XFL? Does he have a chance to make the XFL?
Holy. But do you think that the 49ers draft a rookie as well?
Oh, 100%. I was just going to say, I at this point, with all the draft picks, they got, 10, 11 picks. They'll probably get another one for if Jimmy leaves. They'll have a slew of compensatory picks. They'll at least take one of those picks to draft a young quarterback and stash him somewhere. I 100% think they'll take a quarterback. I would be shocked if they didn't. I could see them taking a quarterback. Yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense. I think at this point, everybody realizes that a rookie quarterback that could play as a starter is really the cheat code as far as how to build a team and how to be competitive year in year out. So if you're not drafting a quarterback every year, even if they make the team or don't make the team, you never know, right? Especially with Brock Purdy, now all of a sudden, you could find somebody that can end up maybe even being a starter in the 7th round. So yeah, I definitely think they'll pick somebody. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they pick somebody in the 4th or 5th round, it might not wait till, the 7th round or the 6th round. Like, I think they might, because there might be guys that drop a little bit that are, could be projects that you could get in the 4th round or 5th round.
No, I 100% agree. I think they might go a little earlier than we would expect, 7th round, like you said, because you can never have enough good depth and development and talent. And like you said, with Brock Purdy, the guy came out of nowhere, 7th round, last pick of the draft, and then he became so relevant, right? And everybody thinks he's the number one quarterback on the team, right, of what he did. So they'll definitely take a guy and develop, and that's what this team does. They develop, like if you saw the video from Rand Carthon last night that, the Titans posted, which is circling all over, social media, how he talked about how the 49ers we're scouting people and they collaborate. And D'Amico walks in and he sees this running back. He's like, oh, wow, he's better than the linebacker. Well, let's take it. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
They're scouting a guy. And then one of the coaches, and they're like, that's the quarterback. We need to take him on this team. We could develop him. Like, I could 100% see them. That's what the Niners do. They scout like crazy.
Right.
They'll add players no matter what position. They don't care. Like, they're not looking at it as far as, oh, we need a safety. This is a hole. They look at the talent and they see
best player available.
Good, yeah. That's what they do.
Best player available. Yeah. And the team does such a great job developing players. I mean, think about all the young players that are playing meaningful roles for the team, right? I listed it off. I mean, Aaron Banks, Elijah Mitchell, obviously Tana Hufanga became an all-pro in his second year. Samuel Womack, Diamador Lenore. Those are 5 guys that are meaningful impact role players or starters that are all within the last 2 years drafted by the 49ers. You go 3 years out, you go Brandon Ayuk, you go Jawan Jennings. Like the team is able to develop players so well that, the draft is really one of the reasons that the 49ers can stay as competitive as they can, because they're so much better at drafting and developing players than other organizations.
Yeah, 100%. And then they get to have guys with meaningful minutes. Like you said, all those guys you listed, they're starters, and they're playing on a rookie, really cheap deal where everybody else is getting paid buku bucks. I mean, we have guys that are the highest at their position. There's some guys you're like, wow, they get paid a lot. But a majority of that roster is made up of guys on rookie deals or really expiring cheap contracts,
right.
Veteran deals. So, like you said about the rookie quarterback, I think your boy Rohan, I saw him tweet out the other day. He says the last 5, I think, teams, like last 5 years, every team in the Super Bowl has had at least one quarterback on a rookie contract. So it's like, damn, that tells you all you need to know. You get a guy on a rookie contract, you just build around him. You go and sign all the players. So you have to, and again, if God forbid something were to happen to Trey or Brock or something, and they get another freaking Brock Purdy, man, then you're good to go. So you just never know, man. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what Trey can do. I know a lot of people are doubting him and this and that, but hey, I think you're right. I think he could shine this year. I mean, he's going to have all the first team reps. He's going to have all these weapons. And I mean, this team is good. They're in great place. They got good coaching. I don't think they're going to lose too many games with Trey or Brock or whoever's the starting quarterback, as long as it's not Josh Johnson. So, yeah, I think we're good. My man 49ers Throwback says, did I see the Bobby Wagner release? So, yeah, we saw that. Rams released Bobby Wagner today. And as 49ers Twitter loves to do, as soon as a player gets released and he's got a great name behind him, 49ers should get him. Should he come to the 49ers? What do you think? Bobby Wagner to the Niners? And they start going crazy. So what do you think? Bobby Wagner to the Niners? What say you?
I think obviously Bobby Wagner is still a really, really good player, right? He had a fantastic season with the Rams. For the type of money that I still think he's going to be able to make, it doesn't make sense for the 49ers to put their resources into him. Now, if he was a defensive lineman, then yeah, I would want to bring him in. But linebacker, we already have the best linebacker in the league in Fred Warner. I would rather save that money and put it to a defensive lineman or an offense or a right tackle if they're going to go free agency that wise. I just don't think it makes sense for the type of money he's going to command.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's still a top flight linebacker in the league, top 5 at least. He put together a good season. I know he didn't have like a memorable season for many, but I think he wasn't he the top rated linebacker per PFF? Although PFF you take with a grain of salt, he still was good. The metrics were there. He was a good linebacker at 34 years old. Still quality year. I think he's still got 2-3 years left in him, and I think he still commands a pretty penny. So he'll go somewhere and get paid. I don't think the Niners necessarily need him. Obviously, like you said, you got Warner and Greenlaw. You don't need him with those 2 guys. Mm-hmm. And as much as I want Azeez Al-Shir back, he's another guy that's going to get a lot of money, and you don't need to spend that money on the linebacker when you have some good ones and you're known to develop good linebackers. Right. So I feel like you said, spend that money on a premium position you need, which is defensive tackle, offensive line, right tackle specifically, or even a safety. Go get one of those guys. And not no disrespect. I mean, if they manage to pull it off somehow and Bobby takes a discount and comes in like on a Richard Sherman deal, hell yeah, I'd be hyped up. But it makes no sense. We already have the best middle linebacker in the league. You can't have Bobby and Fred, and he's not going to play, outside linebacker or anything. That's just not his game. So to me, it doesn't make sense. But hopefully he doesn't stay in the NFC West. Let's get him out of there. I want to get him out of there. Even though he's older, he still plays damn good against us, man.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Not that it mattered. Let's be honest. They still swept the
They
Rams this
still
year.
got
So.
slaughtered, yeah. They still got slaughtered. Man, that was amazing. Sweeping the NFC West was amazing this year,
Right.
man. That was good stuff. Any other free agents? So you mentioned defensive tackle. Where's your head at in free agency? What do you guys want? Who do you want for free agency, man? If you can get one guy, give me a guy.
Deron Payne, man. That's my dream guy right now is Deron Payne. I just think that defensive tackle position has been so elusive to the 49ers for such a long time. Just give somebody young, like build around Deron Payne and Nick Bosa. I think that's fire now. Financially, obviously, I know there's a lot of hurdles to make that work. I don't even know if Deron Payne's going to be available. Washington could obviously franchise him, and then then obviously there's no shot. But that would be the dream. Otherwise, the tackle from Philly, I think it's Hargrave.
Hargrave, yeah.
Hargrave would be ideal. Obviously, he'd be more of a stopgap. He's a little bit older, so you'd be looking for maybe 2 years from him. But if they could get like whatever they expected Kinlaw to be, if they could finally get that production there, a 3-down tackle that could rush the passer and stop the run, I think that changes everything for the defense. Already a defense that is a top defense in the league, but I think that just solidifies them to make them even take another leap, which is wild to think that a defense as good as they were last season can do that.
Yeah, it isn't. It is crazy to think, but they can still get better, and that's what we want to look for. Because hey, they were great, number one in the league, but obviously it wasn't good enough. I guess at the end, obviously quarterback was an issue, but I agree. I think if you can solidify that defensive line, this defense will be even better. Take pressure off the secondary, and man, Deron Payne definitely would be phenomenal addition, or a guy like that, because obviously Kinlaw hasn't reached his potential. He's been limited by the injury, so the writing's on the wall on him. It's almost the end of that project. He'll probably play out his last year in his contract. I can't see them cutting him, and I don't think they'll pick up his 5th-year option. So they do need to look at that position and start getting younger, because Armstead's not getting any younger himself. Great player, good run stuffer, but he needs help. This was his first year in many, many years where he was hurt. So you got to get some defensive line help out there. They got good depth players, but I think once they got rid of DJ Jones, they kind of really changed up. They were banking on Kinlaw so much, and you can't put that much pressure on a guy that has had that knee injury, the knee history. So it is kind of stressful to see that, but I think they'll make some moves, and if they can get a splash defensive tackle, man, I'd be all over it. But again, with Payne, I think you're right. He's probably going to get the franchise tag. I mean, that's what everybody's kind of looking towards. So.
I would if I was Washington, right?
Oh, kidding me? Was he 25 years old?
Yeah.
He's probably going to be the best D tackle, top 3 at least for the next 5-6 years, man. Go keep that guy on your roster. That guy's a monster.
What's interesting though, they could only franchise one player, right? And they have Chase Young there too. So if they end up franchising Deron Payne, would you sniff around Chase Young and see 100%. If you could bring him?
I would. I mean, I know the injury history's there, and I'm a little weary of that kind of stuff. That's the only thing I'd worry about. But he's still young. I still think he could kind of come back. And Nick Bosa, he had 2 ACL tears. So if anybody can get this man right and train him, Nick Bosa could bring him in. And
they have a connection, all right.
Yeah. So, hey, if we get Chase Young, I'll be happy. But again, I would be a little stressed out about the injury history. But because he's younger, I wouldn't be as stressed out as some other guys, because there was some rumors of other people, like Taylor Lewan, who pretty much shut that down today. But he's 31 with knee injuries. Chase Young is 25 with knee injuries, so it's a little difference. But yeah,
there was a report that came out, Rod, saying Dallas might be cutting Tyron Smith. I know a lot of people were looking at that, but once again, goes back to the injury history, right? He's I think he's played less than half the amount of games that he over the last 3 years. Like another guy where it would only make sense if it was on some kind of team friendly deal that was more incentive driven versus like guaranteed money. But you would think there'd be some team that would overpay for him. I wouldn't want to overpay for him if I was the 49ers, but he would be perfect if he could stay healthy. Obviously that would solve a big problem for us, but if Dallas felt like he could stay healthy, I don't think they'd be cutting him.
No, 100%. And then I guess with a lot of these guys, like Titans yesterday cleaned house, and players like that on Dallas, they're gonna get cut because they can't stay healthy. They're good players, but man, you take a risk on a guy and overpay for someone. We've
already seen that happen too many times.
D Ford, yeah, we've seen D Ford, man. That was the biggest lemon we could buy. I was like walking right into the car shop and give me that lemon right there.
Yeah,
it was nice. It was pretty shiny. That they detailed it for us. He had a career year coming off of Kansas City, and they couldn't get OBJ that offseason, so they went to Plan B right away. And man, that we were still paying for D Ford this year. That was crazy to me.
Finally took him off the books, and now everybody's like, "Let's go get Tyron Lewis."
It's crazy. That's what I was flipping out. I had Wayne on here yesterday. I was like, Wayne, you're killing me with this. You just got D Ford off the books, man. You want to pay this guy? He was like, wow, he's a veteran. I was like, come on, man. I can't deal with this, So
all of these stats have been, these there's these reports. I think there was some stuff on Speak for Yourself or one of those shows where it talked about just the injury prone. Well, the 49ers, there was that ACL tear list where 49ers were number one. And it's just like, all right, well, obviously there's something going on, but one of the biggest issues is that the 49ers constantly take these risks on these injury prone players. Like they bring in guys like a Kinlaw who had injuries all throughout his college career too, still brought him in, bring in a guy like D Ford, bring in these guys that have, injury histories. And then we're constantly complaining about, as 49er fans, why is our team always injury prone? And then it's like any player that comes available, we disregard their injury.
We want to get it, but because the talent, man, because sometimes you just see the talent and then you're like, oh, we got to get up. So I just pulled it up. I think Ryan Hensley he tweeted this today. It was an excerpt from, I think it was Cowherd's show. So he basically says, 49ers under Kyle Shanahan since 2017 are the most injured team in the NFL. He asks why. And it says that the 49ers have missed 1,485 games total since 2007. Like their combined amount of games missed is over 1,400. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. And we've had like Malcolm Smith, guys like that,
Jason Verrett, we keep bringing these players in that obviously you take this risk. Like, yeah, if they're healthy, wow, you got to steal out of them. Yeah. But there's a reason why you have to take a risk on them. And for some reason, the 49ers, I don't know if one's worked out where they've had that injury prone and they've just been able to stay healthy and play well for the 49ers. We haven't seen it go that way quite yet.
We haven't. Like, I don't know how many times I've tweeted or posted, like, through the years, like, oh, man, if so-and-so could stay healthy, he's going to be a dog. Like, I've literally seen that post so many times, not just for me, but other content creators, like, oh, if Jason Verrett can stay healthy, can you imagine? Yeah. It's just like literally every player on our team. Jared McKinnon's a sad Niner fan said Jared McKinnon was a guy that they banked on, and then he got hurt, but they kept bringing him back, and it's just those are the type of guys we get. They're great if they're healthy, but I just want them to get away from that injury-prone type of guys that have had that history. So it's
most recently we did it with Raheem Mostert.
Yeah,
we're doing it with Elijah Mitchell. Like I don't. If they re-sign Elijah Mitchell, we're doing it once again, right? We still haven't seen Elijah Mitchell stay healthy a whole season, and it's just we gotta get away from that tendency, and just be like, yo. It's like that one kind of girl that you always go for. That's just it never works out, but you keep going back. It's just like
You're like, oh, man. But
maybe this time.
Because it's tempting because it's like for these players, it's like it's cheap. You can get them cheaper. They have the potential, and if everything goes right, you're like, man, I look like a genius. Look, I got this. I resurrected his career. Or you could turn that girl around. Like, man, if I could fix her. Everybody's gonna say you're the GOAT, but you can't fix what's broken. You really can't fix what's broken, man. And that's what the Niners, man. It is so frustrating every year when we get these players, and then you're sitting there, this is the year. Raheem Mostert staying healthy. Week 4 comes,
nope.
Damn it, So 100%, man. It makes me upset. So hopefully this year they can, start getting away from that. We'll see, man. Yeah, I'm just happy they got out of D Ford's contract. That thing was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, like Armstead has been playing, but very soon, Armstead could be a contract like that too with his, now he's getting nagging injuries and things like that. So 49ers got to be very, very smart about who they bring on, and not just think about just now. You know what I mean? We got to think about how it's going to impact in the future as well.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they do have to think about now, but you have to think about the future because, you want to keep sustaining winning seasons for a long time, not just now. But you got to look at the window. How many years do the 49ers have left with this core? Because eventually, you're right, guys like Armstead, guys like Kittle, they're not going to be, in their prime forever. So then you need to figure out how you're going to develop once they're gone or they're not in their prime. So it is a balancing act. But right now, your window is probably, 2 years, maybe 3 years with this core group of guys. You don't want to squander it. You want to hopefully can win a Super Bowl with this core group of guys. So they have to bring in the right people this offseason in order to get this core over the hump because they've been so close, man, so damn close. They just can't pull it off. I would hate to see this core not win a Super Bowl.
I guess it depends on Trey Lance, right? If Trey Lance ends up becoming, a top 10 quarterback, top 8 quarterback, obviously this window opens because you think about, I guess it depends on who you think is the core. Obviously, the one guy that you don't expect to last more than 3 years is Trent Williams, right? He's already up there. But you look at Bosa, he's still young. He's still good 4, 5, 6 years. Fred Warner, you're probably thinking the same. That both of those guys probably have another contract in for the 49ers. Ayuk, CMC still young, so if Trey Lance becomes what we expect, what we think he's capable of, this team will be good for, the next 5 to 8 years, right? But without that quarterback, you're right, maybe 2-3 years for just a middle of the road quarterback to still be competitive. I think you're right, 2 or 3 years with this core.
I agree, but you're right. If Trey can hit that ceiling, which we've, everybody talks about Trey hitting the ceiling, if he can, pan out and become a really good player, then yeah, he'll extend that window because, okay, some of those other guys will leave, but then you have this really good quarterback that you can start plugging pieces in. So that to me is the key is Trey Lance or Brock Purdy on the flip side. If he becomes the guy that and I think Niner fan says it, he goes, we're really missing a consistent quarterback. So honestly, that's it. The golden key to all of this is the quarterback. And it's the same thing we talk about every offseason is quarterback. So, oh, man, I just can't believe that we're always here every year, after the season ends, and we're sitting here talking about who's going to be the starting quarterback. I can't believe it, man. I really can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the gift and the curse with Shanahan, right? Because Shanahan is really, really good at getting the best out of quarterbacks, but he's not very good at necessarily – he hasn't shown the ability necessarily to pick the right quarterback, right? So – he's able to get the max. I don't think Jimmy G ever looks as good as Jimmy G's looked under Kyle Shanahan with the next team he goes to. I don't think they're going to get anywhere close to the type of Jimmy G that the 49ers got. Brock Purdy, they were able to elevate his game. But what we haven't seen is Kyle Shanahan be able to find a Patrick Mahomes, be able to find a Jalen Hurts, be able to find a Joe Burrow or or Josh Allen and stuff like that, which is, ultimate talent plus take them. You've seen a guy like Matt Ryan obviously was, picked very high, solid quarterback. But when Kyle Shanahan was his offensive coordinator, he was an MVP, right? So and they went to the Super Bowl. So Kyle Shanahan could get the best out of a quarterback. Can he pick the right quarterback? Still is up for debate. And I think that's where it becomes the curse because he can make any quarterback really look good if they have a certain skill set. So that's where everybody's kind of Jimmy. He wins with Jimmy. He can win with Brock Purdy. That's where I think the debate comes because it's we've seen these guys win. We haven't seen Trey Lance. Trey Lance starts winning, all of a sudden all the hate goes away.
100%, because winning fixes everything. It cures all. The moment Trey starts winning games, the narrative's going to switch up. So it's going to be crazy. I can't wait because I got receipts. I got receipts, man. If they start winning, oh man, it's going to be where are you guys?
Right.
A month ago when you were hating on the guys. So
and you know what?
It'll be interesting.
You know what, Raj? And it's not just winning, because Brock Purdy did well. Brock Purdy was getting this team where they were scoring 30 plus points. That's the type of offense I want to see with Trey Lance, which I think he's fully capable of. I think that Brock Purdy was kind of a blessing in disguise for Trey, because Brock also is more of a mobile. He has more mobility than Jimmy did. So you got to see the bootlegs. You got to see him, making plays with his legs and things like that. I think Trey got to see kind of what is capable of, but what Trey's going to be able to bring is the deep ball, right? And so that's something that could definitely change the offense completely, is having that deep ball consistency from a guy with the type of arm that Trey has. But, I look at this and I think it's a great situation, because I think the 49ers offense is going to be able to stay at its peak with Trey Lance being something that's averaging 30 points per game. Plus the defense is going to get better now that they have, Steve Wilkes there, who can get the back end of the defense as strong as the front end of the defense, which I think is going to help. I think this team is going to be ridiculous next season, bro.
Yeah, I still think they're one of the top teams in the NFC. And that's what's crazy, because I know people are like, oh, God, this team's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to win. The people that are doubting them. It's still not a lot of great teams in the NFC. So even if Trey does take a little bit of time to kind of hit his ceiling and develop a little bit, they're still going to win games, because they're going to have a good defense. You got those weapons, and he can kind of learn along in the NFC. I feel like there's some room for error. You had the Lions, who started 1-6, and then all of a sudden they surged at the end and they almost made the playoffs. And to me, other than Philadelphia, who lost both of their coordinators, offensive and defensive, they got 11 key free agents, all starters. I don't know if they're going to bring all of them back. They got to pay Jalen Hurts. They're going to take a bump here and there. There really isn't any elite teams in the NFC outside the Eagles and the Niners. There'll be some up-and-coming teams. Niners are still going to be able to compete and make it far. So I still think they can win at the very least 10 games, and I think that's good enough to make the playoffs. But I still think they win the NFC West this year. So I don't know.
I mean, I think the only team that's going to be, well, I guess the Rams will be better. Seattle, who knows if they bring back Geno, they'll be competitive. But
yeah,
I think the 49ers would probably, maybe they don't go 6-1 like they are. Yes, no, they went undefeated, right? So they went 6-0. Even if it's 4-2 or 5-1, I think they still, like you said, win the NFC West. And I fully expect them to be one of the favorites, not just to win the NFC, but win the Super Bowl. So, I don't have a doubt. I mean, all of this talk about Kyle Shanahan isn't him and isn't the right coach and all this kind of, it's too much for me, bro.
It's crazy, man. The narrative, like, we got people out there, like, I get someone that DMs me, like, every day, we got to fire Kyle Shanahan. I'm like, God, dog, bro, you just told me that every day. I wake up, check my DM. You got to fire Kyle. You got to somehow work your magic. I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
Raj has a direct link to New York. People don't know about that.
Yo, John, I need you to cut and fire Kyle. Kyle Shanahan? Yes, cut him. John, like, what am I supposed to do, bro?
Dude, if you're having the same conversation about what to do with Jim Tomsula and do with Kyle Shanahan, it's probably a you problem, not a me problem at that point. Because it's like, Kyle Shanahan has got this team back to where now we're greedy and it's like Super Bowl or bust. So if you're not winning a Super Bowl, you're trash. That wasn't the case before Kyle Shanahan, right? It was just like make the playoffs and we're excited, or be competitive and be excited.
I just wanted him to win 7 games. Like literally maybe 5 to 7 games. Because when Harbaugh left, I was like, oh God. And he had Tom Sula and he got thrown in there. And after that, Chip Kelly, I was like, why did we get this guy so bad? I knew he was going to be wasting our players and just grinding them out. And it was so bad. And I remember there was a season we won 2 games. I'm like, just get 6 games. Just win 6 games. And even before that era, before Harbaugh came, we had some bad Dennis Erickson and, Nolan and, oh, God. We could barely win 4 games. And I'm just like, win half of your damn games. That's all I wanted at that point. I didn't even care about making playoffs. And now it's like, I guess people are greedy because we're so close. They want to win it all.
And one thing that I say, Raj, and I put this on Twitter, and it's been, getting a lot of traction. I always make the comp about Kyle Shanahan to Andy Reid. Mm-hmm. And Andy Reid, went to 5 NFC championship games with the Eagles, went to a Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl, and the Eagles fired him. And since that time period, Andy Reid has won more Super Bowls than the Eagles organization has in their whole history.
Wow.
In two. They just want to. And think about it. So people point to the Eagles. They fired Andy Reid, and then they won a Super Bowl with Doug Peterson. That's right. And then they fired Doug Peterson, and Nick Sirianni took them to the Super Bowl. Yeah. Guess who made sure that they didn't win that Super Bowl? Who was the coach on the other side?
It's Andy Reid, baby. Yeah.
So I'm like, gift and a curse. Like people keep thinking that, oh, you could just fire Kyle Shanahan and everything's going to be just the same. It's not that case, man. There's so many more examples of people firing good coaches and them not getting back to there. Look at the Cowboys. Look at the Chargers. Remember Schottenheimer? They were like, he was always 14-2, like 13-3, and then they fired him. Where's the Chargers been? They haven't even sniffed anything close to that. And I just think we just give Kyle Shanahan the right quarterback, man, and we're talking a much different game.
Yeah, it just takes time, man, and sometimes it takes these guys a little bit to get over the hump. And I think people forget, this is Kyle's first, the 49ers head coaching position is the first time in his career he's been a head coach. So he's still a young head coach, 6 years. Yeah. Andy Reid, like you said, 5 NFC championship games. I remember that. I was like, this guy's never going to win it. They had T.O., McNabb, like they had some squads, man.
Yeah.
And they could never get it. And then he gets canned by Philly, and I'm like, wow, that was pretty big. And, okay, he goes to Kansas City. And even in Kansas City, it was like one and done. He would get to the playoffs, and they would lose. It wasn't until they figured out the quarterback position. Now he's running circles, and his offense is everybody calls him the genius. But this kind of like Shanahan. He's very similar. He has good offensive schemes. People copy him, and he gets close, but he can't finish it off. And it's a quarterback issue. He'll get there eventually. Andy Reid's like 60 years old, 60 in his late 60s.
It took him 10 years to win his first Super Bowl.
Yeah, man. It takes him a while. Kyle Shanahan's like 40 years old. He's still young. Young. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also think that, one thing that Andy Reid has always done better than Kyle Shanahan is his evaluation of quarterbacks, right? He's phenomenal at picking quarterbacks in the draft. Obviously, he saw something in Patrick Mahomes that not everybody else saw, right? Patrick Mahomes, I think what some of the announcers during that, I think is Mel Kiper Jr., said that Patrick Mahomes is going to be a bust. Right. And, a lot of people said that. So, a lot of people look at Kyle Shanahan and are like, oh, he passed on Patrick Mahomes. Well, I think a lot of people, I think there's only 2 coaches that really were about him. And one was Andy Reid. The other was Sean Payton. Yeah. But most everybody was going to pass on him because of the system he came from and all that kind of stuff. But that is one thing. Andy Reid, was able to find Donovan McNabb, Kevin Kolb. Like, he got really good out of Alex Smith. And, obviously then he hit the jackpot with Patrick Mahomes. So Kyle Shanahan does need to get that. And hopefully it's Trey Lance. If it's Trey Lance, then it's game over. Like, I could see if Trey Lance turns into what Kyle Shanahan expects him to be, the 49ers are going to win multiple Super Bowls with this regime.
If he could be Donovan McNabb, I'll be happy, man.
Yeah.
Donovan McNabb was a beast, man. I remember that guy.
Yeah,
he was
absolutely.
Dope. But you're right, because Andy Reid has done a good job of getting those quarterbacks. Like, you're right. Alex Smith, he leaves the Niners, goes there, and he flourished under Andy Reid. So whatever he's doing, Kyle should maybe call up Andy and say, hey, like, just tell me what quarterback I should run with this season. And that's all we need. Figure it out. And then he could say, hey, okay, Andy, we'll meet you in the Super Bowl next year, and let the best quarterback win. And hopefully it's us this year. But you're right, honestly.
And if you think about, Raj, the coaches that do get canned because they're not winning or they don't take it over the hump are usually coaches that have the quarterback solution there, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe you can say, okay, Schottenheimer but you had Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers there. So if you can't win with these guys, maybe you're not the right guy. Andy Reid, let's say, hey, you have Donovan McNabb. You still couldn't win with him. Maybe you're not the right guy. Well, we can't say that. Nobody's saying, oh, you had Jimmy G, so you had the right guy. Like, nobody's winning with Super Bowls with Jimmy G. You know what I mean? So I think for me at least, people ask me, Sunil, when would you fire Kyle Shanahan? The minute he gets a quarterback that we expect him to win with, and he can't win the Super Bowl with that quarterback, then I'm like, all right, he can't, maybe find somebody else. But I don't think we've gotten to that situation yet.
Not yet. I think he's still developing as a coach. They're getting better every year. He's been able to, return after a slow start. These last 2 years, they get off to a bad start, and he's able to turn the hump over. So I think he's figuring it out. He's getting aggressive. He's not always the most consistent, but I've been critical of him over the years. But I think this year was amazing what he did with, getting to the NFC Championship with Brock Purdy. So give him a couple more years. You're right. People get so like just frustrated. They're impatient. He didn't win it. We got to get a new coach. But who's out there that can replace him? There's nobody that you bring him in, then you got to learn a new system, and then the locker room's gonna be like, the hell we got rid of Kyle? Because these guys they went to Cabo with him. Obviously they like him, because if they get rid of Kyle, you're gonna lose the locker room. That's exactly what happened with Harbaugh. Half the team left. There was like a shell of that team after Harbaugh left, and then we were back to the dark days. So
do you trust Lynch without Shanahan? I don't.
Mm-hmm. No,
I don't.
They're two peas in a pod. Yeah.
Yeah, and you look at some of these, so I keep pointing to the Eagles because a lot of people on Twitter point to the Eagles. The Eagles GM, Hugh, I think his name is, I think the coach's name or the owner's is Laurie and Hugh something. Think about all the coaches he's picked. He picked Reed, then he picked Doug Peterson, he picked Nick Sirianni. Like, he's really good at picking coaches, that owner, right? Laurie over there. That's not the same that you could say for York, right? He's picked Harbaugh and he's picked Shanahan. Those have been the two good coaches that he's picked. He's picked Howie Roseman there. That's that's the GM there. Laurie and Laurie who's the owner of the Eagles, and Howie Roseman are much different combination from Jed York and John Lynch, right? So you got to play to your skill sets. Jed York doesn't hit on coaches as often as Laurie does, so I would be scared for Jed York to go back to and try to find another coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather him stick with the one that he finally got right.
I'm good with Jed being in the shadows, stepping back, because he took a step back. But you're right, Roseman's not like that. He's like, okay, we got to be proactive. I'm going to find a coach. He's not going to do that. Lynch, I like him. I think he's done a good job. Obviously, this is the first time he's been a GM in his life too, so he's still learning himself. And I like this combo. They're learning together. They're a pair. They make decisions together. If Jed York was making decisions, I'd be a little scared. We got Adam Peters waiting in the wings. Red Eye says Adam Peters is a guy who could be better than Lynch. We don't know. We see how good he is as a talent scout. When he becomes eventually he's going to be a GM. We know it. He didn't take any interviews. He knows he's waiting for his shot. When he comes, maybe that's when you transition, because you don't have the same GM. But we'll see. When we don't know when we're going to get to that point. They may win a Super Bowl before that happens. But, they have a good front office. It's a good scheme. It's a good team, a good coaching staff. Like, we've seen all the coaches get plucked, and then Kyle reshuffles the deck and says, all right, now we got a couple more coaches, and now let's start this over again. So at the end of the day, people want to get rid of him because he's not winning Super Bowls, but he's building great coaches. His coaching tree is amazing, and they're winning games. And at the end of the day, as long as we're winning, it's better than having a crappy 2-win season. And at least we have a chance to get there. So eventually, I think they'll get over the hump. Quarterback's the issue, and let's see if Trey can be that guy. That, to me, is the biggest takeaway from this whole thing. But I got to probably head off here in a few minutes. I'm going to see if you have any last-minute things. I got to hop on another show here in a couple minutes. But
you a busy man. Yeah, man.
I'm always busy. Always busy. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, if you guys, like what you see, go over to my YouTube page. Please subscribe there. I'm going to be on with Jack on his channel at 7 p.m. today to talk shop with him. But other than that, man, just appreciate the opportunity to be on your show again.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. Like I said, hit me up. We'll get something going. I always like to have people on here, get a different perspective. It's always great to have you on. And, yeah, man, just like I said, let me know when you need to. And anybody that's watching, go check out my boy, Sunil, and follow him on all platforms, man. He's a good dude.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, my man. Take care, everybody. Make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. You guys have a good rest of your day.